Speaking of scary stuff, we just had Halloween.
Yeah, dude, I have a very weird relationship with Halloween that I haven't told you, so I could tell you on camera.
Toolshed Art Club.
Hey, I was talking to somebody at your Halloween party, and they had a problem that I know a lot of people have, which is they were talking about wanting to train to be more efficient on their handgun, but how expensive ammo is. So I told that person, and I'm glad to tell our audience about a sponsor of ours, Defiance Training Group. It's led by Clay Martin. He's a friend of mine. He is a Green Beret. And in this training, what you do is you basically start with the airsoft gun, and you use that as a supplemental training to actual live fire handgun shooting. It's helped me out significantly. I carry a Glock. They make Glock replicas of airsoft guns that are the same size, dimensions, almost the same weight. It's something that you can basically train in your garage. You can shoot hundreds of rounds of airsoft, and then you can supplement that on the weekends with live fire. So please check out defiancetraininggroup.com. That's what I got for an ad read. And Austin, I did want to say
pull out your Glock and fire it into the camera.
Yes, sir. I did want to say before we get started today, I was thinking about this last night. Tell
me your dreams.
Well, here's the thing. We're very aware that right now in the world it's kind of a scary place. There's always wars and rumors of wars. That's just been how it is historically. And
Very exciting.
We're not two guys in Nebraska who are completely oblivious to this. But for us and for you as an artist, if you're listening, you just have to stay in the pocket and you got to keep making art. Do what you have to do to keep yourself safe and your family safe, but don't let that stop you from making art. Don't let the fears of this world prevent you from making whatever it is that you want to create. We're making this show, and yeah, it's a little bit silly sometimes and this or that, but again, you just got to stay in the pocket. We're aware that the world's scary, but hopefully, when you watch or listen to this, it can keep your mind off that for a little bit. So I thought that was worth saying.
Oh, wow. That was inspirational, Matt. Speaking of scary stuff, we just had Halloween.
Yeah, dude, I have a very weird relationship with Halloween that I haven't told you, so I could tell you on camera.
Oh, really? You have a weird relationship with Halloween?
Yeah, growing up, we didn't celebrate it.
Oh, good. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, when I was, my mom let me go out as Batman once when I was 3, but it wasn't something that my dad was cool with. And to be honest, I'm all right with it. Like, I take my kids trick-or-treating, but my dad just had a conviction. He thought that it was, a demonic holiday, and he didn't feel comfortable celebrating it. And I don't feel like I missed out on Halloween night. We would go to a movie or something like that as a family.
Or you go to, eat Chinese. Like how people who don't celebrate Christmas.
Yes, just like a Thanksgiving store.
I've been to a Chinese restaurant
on Christmas?
On Christmas before. Because I changed my diet and I went to my grandma's and everything was just slathered with cheese and dairy, which I mean I love, but I was just tired of having stomach ache, so I called a Chinese place down the street and they were open and I ordered it.
Was it in Wahoo?
No, it was in Omaha.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's like I said, when I was a kid, we didn't do it.
Yeah, and to be honest, I do Halloween now because of peer pressure, really.
Yeah.
Because there's, everybody celebrates it. But I mean, if there was, my son loves Halloween, and there are things that I love about it, but then there's things that I hate about it too.
Yes.
I love stuff that's scary and creepy.
Yeah.
Right? But not overtly
evil.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what the thing, if you have dead babies and dead baby dolls everywhere in your front lawn, I mean, you're I see that, I'm like, that a psychopath lives there.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
I mean, don't,
Yeah, completely. Because as somebody with a newborn, and you just realize how precious and innocent and helpless they are. For people to I completely get. I saw something this weekend where they're trying to use like baby doll heads as props, and I thought like that's not really. Actually, we were at the same thing. Did you see that?
Dude. But I've been seeing it like the last few years all over the place. Like everybody's getting in on the dead baby doll trend.
I think it's kind of a thing with like scary movies where we've talked even about it a little bit with David Gunn about where you keep trying to just one up things and you try to make things more gross. And I mean, I feel like that was already done in the 80s. So if you're still to this day trying to just, I was talking to the young man that we know who loves horror movies. And I talked to him about that. I said, when you just are trying to make things more gross, it's not as if I can't handle it. Dude, I've been on a volunteer fire department. I've seen people die. I've seen bones through skin and shit. I've seen stuff. It's not that I can't handle it. It's just, it's kind of like watching where you see pop stars trying to basically outdo Madonna, and it's like, didn't we already kind of do this with Madonna and Marilyn Manson? Are we still trying to do, we're still trying to one up this stuff?
Well, yeah. Well, dude, now look at rappers.
Yeah.
They're it's a long way from NWA and Death Row. Now if you want to be a rapper, you have to wear a crop top and women's panties.
I thought you were going to say it's a long way from like, this here's a tale for all the fellas trying to.
yeah. Well, it was first that. I love that,
that funky cold mud.
Yeah. My buddy JP, he's like, dude, it won't be long before people just start using human cadavers in their front yard for Halloween.
Yeah, I could see.
Like
I could see
when
that.
we were out trick or treating and just seeing some of the stuff. And he's super into Halloween. He's done a haunted garage and stuff like that, but he even sees it. I don't know how I feel about the churches getting in on it. Like churches like trunk or treat. And then what is it with like every church? Like they let the one person set up the booth or the trunk that's like where they're like a witch or a fortune teller.
Yeah, that
I want to pour gasoline. I want to flip that table like Jesus did when he goes into the, he's like, right, yeah, and he's just in the temple.
Yes,
he's like that's what I want to do. I want to go up to this fortune teller lady's thing in the middle of a church and just flip the table.
Because here's the thing is if they think that they're like recruiting non-believers into that, non-believers know, like when they see that, they just think like, well, that's not Christian. And to them, it's just another mark of Christian hypocrisy. Oh. It's not a mark of like, hey, you guys are cool. So I think that
I would if I was the pastor of any of those churches, I would excommunicate. I'd be like, you were banned till you repent.
What do you think about, because sometimes Christians can do this thing where they're like, there's pagan roots of Christmas and Halloween and all these things. And a lot of these, wasn't Halloween All Hallowtide, or All Saints Day, which was basically, a day of remembrance of saints or, loved ones who have passed away. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I think my understanding is the trick-or-treating going door to door started from where it was a day where poor people could basically go door to door and ask for food. And so I've heard that, it had some origins.
That's what we should have been doing.
Yeah.
I should have been going up and being like, do you have any soup?
Do you have potatoes or something? I don't think that there's, some of these origins I don't think are bad. And the Christmas, the pagan roots of Christmas, that stuff does get a little bit carried away because you can also find truly Christian origins and all that in the Christmas tree and this or that. So there is a little bit of revisionist history, and I think it quickly bleeds into this legalistic thing where you can say like, I'm more holy or better than you because I don't celebrate Halloween or I don't celebrate Christmas. As a kid, dude, I never felt like that. Yeah, I just never felt as a kid like a pull to. I wasn't really into it, and it's fun. Like my kids were Mario and Luigi for Halloween this year.
Dude, your kid was your kid was so cute that when he saw my son, he was Mario, and he pulls off his mustache, and he goes, "Hi, Elijah, it's me." He thought that the mustache concealed his identity, dude, like Clark Kent in his glasses.
I know, dude. I love it.
It was the greatest thing ever. But you weren't there to see it.
I wasn't there.
You were practicing your nunchucks in your garage. Because I asked your wife, I said, where is Matt? And she goes, I'm married to a 14-year-old and he's in his garage practicing his nunchucks.
Yeah, that's exactly. I was at a black belt pre-promotion where I had to use nunchucks.
Am I saying it wrong? So it's not numb? It's none?
It's not. Yeah, I guess nunchucks. We used to call them swing sticks. When I was growing
swing
up.
Sticks?
When I was growing up in martial arts, we called them swing sticks. And then I started hearing people say nunchucks at the black belt promotion. So, I mean, just a detour for...
swing sticks is the best name for that I've ever even heard.
Oh, are we called bow staff, long staff?
You better watch out or I'm going to beat the shit out of you with my swing sticks.
We call it sword, so
Sword?
Yeah, we just called a sword, a bow staff, a long staff.
Oh, I thought you were saying you call a sword.
No, but that'd be cool. I wasn't at that trunk or treat because I was at a pre-promotion for to get my adult black belt. But so yeah, my wife is married to a 14-year-old boy.
I didn't even know that you were like that, like you had gotten a black belt.
Yeah,
when you were a kid, and then that you were working to it. I thought that you always, when you were like, I'm going to jiu-jitsu, I thought that you were just going to exercise.
Yeah, I guess a quick detour. I grew up RWTB, Rosenbach Warrior Training Branch. They teach mixed martial arts, and then he has classes where they teach Hapkido, Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah, they used to teach. They used to do ninjutsu on its own thing, and I had gotten a black belt in mixed martial arts when I was 12. Went to it till I was 15 or 16. Stopped going for about 10 years. Picked it back up, but I just
was it like riding a bike?
Well, I always stayed on top of the moves. I could always do a 360 roundhouse and some of the complex things, so I was able to pick back up.
Can you still do a 360 roundhouse?
Oh yeah. I can't do it right now at the camera in the room, but I can definitely do it.
You can definitely do it in the parking lot when this episode is over.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can do it in the hallway.
Why aren't you doing that all the time? I would be opening my like microwave or shutting my microwave by doing a full 360 kick.
Yeah. So
you gotta use these powers more, bro.
My instructor, he's in his 70s, and I just had this thought where I was like, who's to say he doesn't retire or something tomorrow? And I was like, I just want to get my adult black belt while he's still teaching him. Since I can still do everything, I was like, can I promote for my black belt this year? And he said, yeah. So, but part of that requirement is you have to do a sword form, nunchuck form, and a bow staff form, which is basically like a set of pre-strikes and movements and things like that you have to do to show competency with the weapon. And so I've been having to go out in my garage with these nunchucks and sword and bow staff to kind of remember the form, and felt a little bit ridiculous with it. But there are some kids who do some insanely impressive stuff with those weapons. It is cool to watch. But
yeah, I think swing sticks would be. I'd want to learn that.
Can you imagine killing somebody with a nunchuck?
Yeah.
I wonder when, I don't really know the history of nunchucks, but I was thinking about this. I'm like, I wonder when the last time is someone's been beat to death with nunchucks.
Well, dude, the show Warrior on HBO Max.
Yeah.
It's a great show. It's basically it takes place in the period right after the Civil War in San Francisco, with Chinatown and like the Irish and stuff. And the main character, the Chinese dude, like that's his speciality.
So he pulls out?
And he has a couple times where he just pulls them out. So I know, since I've seen that, I'm probably pretty good.
Nice. Yeah, I would say so. You're probably an expert on it after just watching the show.
So you kill someone. Well, you could probably choke them out, and then you pull the sticks.
Oh, dude!
And then you go like that, and their head shoots off.
They hurt really bad when you get choked. To get choked by those, they hurt really bad because they pinch.
Yeah.
The wood and the rope, it does hurt really bad. But
so are you're not using ones with chains?
I actually do. That's my favorite one. I have these kind of plastic ones they don't make anymore, and my instructor gave them to me when I was like 12, and they're still my favorite to use. But I do have a wooden pair that are heavy. Like if you hit somebody in the head with it, you could definitely kill somebody with these. And there's
what kind of wood is it made out of?
Oh, dude, it's like oak. It's heavy. They're heavy. But they typically when you start, they have foam ones, and that's kind of what you start with. And then they have real thin. I don't know what kind of wood it is, but they're very thin and they have a chain on them. That's what I used for the pre-promotion. So
do you know how to use a bow staff?
oh yeah, but not as good. I mean, there's some of the stuff that I see the kids doing now that are going for their black belt. They can throw it up in the air and catch it and spin it behind their back.
Yeah, but they do that in that dance thing in high school.
Oh yeah,
with the baton.
Yeah, with the baton.
Yeah,
it's just like a big baton, basically.
That you just. But like, what's the most lethal out of all the Ninja Turtle weapons?
Well,
probably
the sword.
No, Raphael's.
The size.
Because it's got 3. I mean, I don't know. I think getting stabbed with one of those, like the sword, obviously that would hurt. But I don't know. Just being like.
The sword would hurt. Yeah, dude.
Or like kill you, but I don't know. But
yeah.
Sword beats the size. But the size are the coolest, right?
Yeah.
For like, if we're looking at it visually.
I'll say this.
For aesthetics.
When I watch shows on like Discovery or History Channel where they bring in like a weapons expert and it's some like dorky martial artist guy, as a martial artist, I always am like, what a fucking dork. Like I never am like, that guy's awesome. I think in the 70s and 80s there was with like the ninja craze, a lot of people had built up a lot of these different martial arts, and I think the UFC really helped tear a lot of those bullshit arts down, which I'm thankful for. Like I'll be honest, last night in sparring, dude, I got in my jiu-jitsu class, we did it's a jiu-jitsu class, but we also do a lot of upright stuff, and the guy that teaches it, he was a cage fight. He fought a couple times in the cage, and some of the guys in the class, they've fought in the cage as well. And sparring is the most. It's so humbling as a man when you realize that maybe I'm not as effective, in a street, because there's so much coordination and timing, and it's actually kind of hard to punch somebody in the face with like a good punch when they're moving their head and things like that. It's not like a Steven Seagal movie. Where
dude, that's what Houston Alexander was telling me, because he's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because we
need to get him on the show still.
Yeah, he does bare knuckle boxing.
Yeah.
Now, and he's like 52, but he's like these guys don't know how to fight. He said that's he was telling me it was all about timing and missing the punches basically.
When I started,
I'm like, doesn't it hurt, to get punched in the face like that? I mean, these are big dudes. He's like, I ain't getting punched in the face.
Yeah. When I started going back and training with these guys who have been training for years, and they're all like, oh, I don't want to get in a street fight. I thought like, come on, dude. Yeah, you do. You're trained. You know what you're doing. But I get it now. I get it. I was sparring my instructor once, and he's got this big beard. He looks like a bear. And while I was sparring him, I thought, I actually don't want to get into a street fight now. Like now I get it.
Yeah, with that guy?
Oh, with just in general, you really don't know. People say that all the time in class. Like you don't know. There's so many people who are training now, and training has gotten so much better.
Oh yeah, you don't know who you're.
But I'll see this, dude. I'll see dudes in their 50s or 60s or whatever who train in the bullshit arts, and they walk around with this like false confidence that that they can just whoop somebody's ass. I heard this. There's a dude that showed up to our school, and this guy was a dork, and he was naming off all these art forms I'd never heard of, and he's like, after training in violence for so many years, now I have to train for peace. And I just thought, you're a fucking idiot. Like you should come in and spar us and let's find out. Like it's so
wait.
stupid.
How does one train for peace?
He was talking about how now he needs to learn how to use his words for de-escalation. And it's like, okay,
what,
man.
Before he just punched people? I don't know. We can see how that can go wrong. Just watch the beginning of Con Air. Ruined his life.
Yeah, so
ruined Nick Cage's life in that movie.
Or some of like the joint locks and things like that. I mean, those do have their use, but if you think that like in a street fight, if you think you're gonna catch a punch and wrap someone's wrist up, dude, I don't see that as a possibility. Now, if I'd heard a story of a guy who I do respect, who's a martial artist, who he was walking into a pizza place and some guy had kind of grabbed him, and when the guy had grabbed him, he just grabbed his wrist real quick and had bent it and was like, are we cool? And the guy's like, yeah, we're cool. And he just let him go. Now that's kind of where I could see it, like where a wrist lock, a joint lock does have its purpose. But sometimes you see people training where it's like they're going to catch a punch and do all this stuff. And it's like, you're not going to catch a
I
punch.
didn't do anything. Dude, there's a comedian that you would know. I won't mention his name. Maybe if we have him on one day, but I'll ask him about his martial arts days. But you would never know that he was a black belt. And I don't, he doesn't train anymore.
Yeah.
He's probably, my age or a little bit older. So, but he was telling me this one time in this bar, because like everybody, he was kind of a dork in high school.
Yeah.
And he ended up just beating the hell out of a football player.
Nice.
I love this story, dude. And I'm going to tell it about, because Pete Lee he'll never share it.
Is that who it is?
Yeah. So Pete Lee in high school, he told me that a football player, he was talking to this girl, and a football player came up to him and shoved him into the lockers.
Yeah.
And he started crying because he was just shocked.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like horribly embarrassed.
Yeah.
But he was also a black belt in martial arts of some sort, like karate, I don't remember. But so he was also the kind of kid where he was like the principal's assistant.
Oh, wow.
So like doing paperwork and stuff like that. So he was all upset and then had to meet with the principal to do his, extracurricular stuff. And after the kid pushed him, the dude's like, I will see you after school. Like the classic deal. So he was all nervous all day, and the principal's like, what's going on? And he told him what happened and said that he's going to fight him. And he goes, listen, he's like, he knew that he trained because he would have to go to practice and stuff like that. He goes, just go fight him. We'll be right by, we're going to stand out. And then, just, we'll give you a few minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. To put him in his place. So
shout out to that principal.
Yeah, dude, this is the 90s. This is how before everything, I don't know, before kids turns into cats.
Yeah.
So he goes to fight this kid, and he said like literally in 1 minute, he broke the dude's wrist, ribs, and knee.
Good. Yeah. Good for him.
And I might be like, and I might even be missing a few bones or like replacing it, because it's been like, over 10 years since I heard this story. But then the principal started yelling, stop, stop, or whatever. And this dude his entire football career was done. He had to be, he was in a cast, his knee was broken, everything. And then he saw him at school like a few weeks later, and they passing him in the hallway. He said he just waved at him.
Yeah.
Because he's also hilarious. And then he said that like these dudes started shit with him one time in a bathroom, and the dude like grabbed his shirt. So he just took his wrists and went like that and just broke both of his wrists.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then dude, yeah. So that's a cool move. And then, and I know this for sure because, man, we were probably in our 20s, and there was this club in Springfield, Missouri, where I was featuring for him. And then I knew a kid, Pat, who I became friends with in California when I lived out there. He was from Springfield, and he moved back. Mm-hmm. So him and his buddies, they come to the show, and then afterwards we go to their apartment loft. And Pete's out on the staircase, like fire exit, and talking on the phone to, I believe, his girlfriend at the time. And this dude that was friends with Pat, is just one of those guys that wanted a fight, just looking for a fight at that age. And so he goes out and he starts talking shit to Pete. And he's like in his face or whatever, just trying to get him to react. And Pete just puts down like the phone and covers it up. And he's like, if you don't get out of here, he's like, I'm going to break your fucking wrist and throw you off of this fire escape. And just stares at him. And the kid's like, whatever, dude. And then laughed. It was so awesome, man.
Oh, there you go. You don't know who's,
but that is the perfect illustration of you don't know who's training. Like you don't know who you're messing with.
Yeah.
You don't know what that person, and even if that person isn't someone who trains in martial arts, you just don't know if the dude's a psychopath.
Yeah.
Maybe he's willing to eat your esophagus.
Yeah. There used to be this thing on YouTube called like Felony Fights. And these kids were showing it to me once when I was in high school. And it was kind of disturbing because they had brought in this dude out of prison and he was trying to fight like a 18-year-old. They would just film fights. And he and this dude who's probably like 18 started a fight. And the kid fell backwards, and this fell and got on top of him and started to bite his cheek. And dude, the screams at the high school, or he wasn't in high school, but probably fresh out of high school, the screams that dude was making were disturbing. And it's like right there, this kid just signed up like, oh, this is cool. I'll be on felony fights, fighting against, like you just said, a psychopath. Yeah,
he's eating his cheeks.
Yeah, not even
My
probably
cheeks are too chubby for that.
Probably not even a trained fighter, but dude, you don't want to get someone like that on top of you. You know what I mean? Who's gonna bite you and things like that. And I always hear that from people like, you don't know my mindset, bro. I'll bite, I'll do this or I'll do that, and it's like, okay,
I'll
but
bite dicks off.
yeah, okay, but again, like if you don't have the coordination and if you're gonna fight somebody who won't even get an adrenaline dump fighting you, you're already.
Dude, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It's about like the people that can just remain 100% calm without their heart rate raising whatsoever.
Yeah, like
that are gonna destroy you.
You're gonna be at a disadvantage regardless if you're fighting somebody who isn't getting worked up and can think through. Actually, David Gunn talks about it in his book. I mean, David Gunn is a martial artist. I mean, he's a big dude. He does jujitsu. He's trained a lot, and he's been in a lot of street fights. And he talked about that in his book, that when it got to the point where you started to be able to see a punch coming because you weren't in that over, stimulated spot.
Adrenaline.
Yeah.
Adrenaline rush.
And when you're fighting someone like that, who you're already at a disadvantage, somebody who's that comfortable with violence. So yeah, it's wild stuff, but yeah, so I wasn't at that trunk or treat, I was doing some martial arts stuff, but I don't know. It is weird too. Do you ever feel like with your son convicted where you may go to something and it's just kind of like evil or scary or whatever, and you're just thinking like, is this something I should really be like showing my kid or whatever? Have you ever felt like that?
Well, like we have avoided those places with him, but if we end up somewhere where it is, and he's kind of been he's more sensitive to that stuff, I think, just naturally. Like he wants things to be scary but not too scary. Like he made a haunted forest, but like he just likes,
but it was a fun haunted forest.
Yeah, like a fun haunted forest that kids would like. So, but I mean, I'll just flat out say, I'm like, no, that's too evil.
Yeah, like
that is insane. Like these people, like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
But that, yeah, it's just a weird holiday, man. It's weird that we celebrate death. Well, it's like in our subconscious, because like we all, like everybody wants to distract themselves from the fact that one day they're gonna die, and then once a year, like all we do is celebrate death.
Well, I don't think people look at it like that, though. I mean, I think
but that's what it is, though, because they're all skeletons. Everything's dead.
Yeah, I think a lot of parents start off of like, oh, it's cool, it's cute, to dress your kid up. But then sometimes you see little kids wearing stuff that's just completely evil. Like you'll see a 7-year-old in like this in the ghost face costume, and you're like,
yeah. That well, like my buddy that we went trick or treating with, his son's like 9, and he had like a pig mask, and then he gave him a chainsaw without the chain and like a butcher's jacket. So he's revving up the chainsaw, like scaring people. And he did that right when we were finishing up. My buddy was already inside the house, and his son fires up the chainsaw, and this little girl starts crying, and the dad has to pick her up. And he goes, I think he thought that it was my kid because I was the only adult around, but he was in front of me quite a ways. And so when I was walking by, he goes, don't worry, honey, that kid's just a dick. And I'm laughing, and I go inside, and I'm like, yo, dude, this guy just called your kid a dick. And he gets all pissed off and then goes outside. Like, who was it that said it? You know what I mean? And he would have said something to him. And I go, dude, listen. Your son just scared his daughter with a chainsaw. Yeah. She's crying. Now you're not going to go get in a fight with the dad in front of his crying daughter. I'm like, let it rest, bro.
Yeah.
Let it rest.
Yeah. I
Still laughing about that.
And I was thinking too, when you're when my oldest son was like 2, he wanted to be a skeleton for Halloween, and we let him because he couldn't say skeleton, he'd say geekyton.
Yeah.
And so we're like,
skeletons are cool. That's inside our.
we were
box.
like, what do you want to be for Halloween? And thinking he'll say like Batman. And he's like, geekyton is how he would say it. And he kept saying it like that. And we're like, dude, it's hilarious because he keeps saying geekyton. And for him, I don't think it was like an evil thing. I think he just thought like
skeletons look cool.
Geekytons look cool. Yeah. So we let him be the geekyton. But yeah,
sounds
man,
like a character in Lord of the Rings.
there's definitely stuff where I'm still trying to figure out how I feel about certain things. Cause yeah, I don't think that some of the stuff is just like overtly evil and, trying to balance it out as a Christian. But again, I don't think a lot of people are just, it's a tradition, in America, we just do it different probably than a lot of countries. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's really hardcore in Mexico. The Day of the Dead is
pretty spooky.
Well, yeah, I mean, they build like altars.
Yeah, I think it's, or do you ever read about like, I think it was
they've taken the Catholic religion and then turned it into,
or
taken it to a whole nother level.
I think it was like the Incans or the Mayans, but I think it was the Incans where they would take, like dead chiefs or priests or whatever, and they would have their day where they would parade them around town like their corpse.
Their corpses?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, that's why I guess my buddy was right. It won't be long before we're using cadavers.
Nah, it won't be. Dude, think about this.
Where's Charles? Go get his corpse.
Think about this though, like as we see in history, so many societies do weird things, and they all continue to seemingly do it after a certain point, and every society tells themselves like, well, we're a modern society. But I think it's definitely possible for, in our lifetime, if things keep getting wild, to see people digging up the dead, or like that one Roman emperor or general that David was talking about in our Rome episode, who wanted to be cremated because he knew that people would mess with his body after a certain point. And we as a country, not even to be political or whatever, but as we tear down statues, it's like, well, how long is it until the statues aren't enough? All the statues are gone, and then they're gonna go to the graves,
Yeah, and put them in like a freezing container. Now we have the technology to really preserve some dead bodies and put them on display.
But I could easily see people digging up, generals from the Civil War and messing with their bodies and things like that. I mean, we can't be that far off from that.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I mean, I always celebrate on Halloween myself, just personally, Reformation Day, when Martin Luther went and nailed 95 theses on the Wittenberg door.
Yeah, dude,
I was like, boom, and then didn't realize he just wanted things to change in the Catholic Church, and he didn't realize that he just went to war with it.
Yeah, it's what's funny is all these smart ass Catholics who I now see are like, oh, what he did was evil. Look at all of this, because now there's
who says that?
Oh, dude, smart ass Catholics are all over the place talking about how what he did was evil because now look at the church or whatever. And it's like, yeah, okay, there are some people who call themselves Christians or call themselves pastors who are doing disgusting, evil things.
Oh, yeah.
But guess what? At the time, the Catholic Church was doing evil crap. And also, if you talk to...
Dude, around that time, the Pope would have little boys jump out of birthday cakes at their parties.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me. Yeah, there's books on all of the different evil popes. But yeah, you'll hear these Catholics talk about how, well, the thing about the Catholic Church is it's actually closest to the early church and yada, yada, yada. But then you'll start being like, oh, yeah, cool. Talk to me about the Pope right now. What do you think about him? And they always are, and trying to do these mental gymnastics to get around the fact that, traditional Catholics, for the most part, from what I can tell, do not appreciate what this Pope is doing, and they're trying to make up excuses for him. And it's like, so you think this guy is directly communicating to God, huh?
Dude, I have nothing nice to say. I'm just not gonna say it.
Oh man,
I don't have. Yeah, it's absurd.
What do you think? I've talked about it before because I've thought it was interesting when I wrote my book, and then hopefully the film that you and I are hoping to make next year about making horror, but that it's actually Christian. And I think I like to think of things like that as a mental exercise, really. Can horror ever be Christian? And I don't know if you can ever really evil for the sake of evil or trying to scare somebody for the sake of scaring them. I don't know if there's a way to fit Christianity in that. But I do think that you can tell the truth about, like, I listened to a kind of a sermon thing that that Walter Martin did on The Exorcist. And I agreed with all of his takes, obviously. But he had some good points where he's like, yeah, the Exorcist does show, how sick and deprived, Satan and demons are, and it's how it's not a cool thing. Now, the problem where the movie and the book go sideways is they basically put the demonic realm above Jesus, as if Jesus and God are somehow struggling to figure out how to counterbalance the devil. You know what I mean? Like they gave too much power to the demonic stuff in those movies. But
that was one movie I remember in high school. We had like a party, with a bunch of us friends, and it was around October. We were going to watch that, and I just was not a fan. I was like, I do not want to like.
I'm a fan.
Like her, like crawling up, like puking. Like I'm like, not my style.
I do appreciate. I do like it for some of the reasons why Dr. Walter Martin said. And I don't know if I'd go around like recommending it to people, but I liked the book a lot. I absolutely hated the ending. But the book was almost more of like a detective book on this priest who basically is kind of losing his faith, and he comes across this case of demonic possession, and a lot of the book is like him investigating it, and he talks about real cases in the world of demonic influence where people died, or where things were just crazy, and so the book was almost more of like a detective novel, but again, just kind of like the movie, hate the ending. I think it's crazy how there's a book by Erwin Lutzer called God's Devil. And he kind of points out how, like in Job, where Satan has to come to God before he can touch Job or do anything to Job, he has to ask God for permission for all of it. And Erwin Lutzer points out, he's like, Satan is still a servant of God. It's not as if God is sitting across from Satan in some chess match trying to figure out his next move and like, oh no, now he did this. What am I going to do? Like, no, Satan is like, God is so powerful that even Satan is still a servant of his, and so much of what we believe of the devil we got from books like Paradise Lost or Dante's Inferno. Like these fictional books are what people, just because of them being in culture, are what people actually think that hell or Satan are like, and it's not biblical at all,
Oh yeah, dude. They, I mean, I remember just being in my 20s and meeting people that would be like, hey, no, man, hell is, the devil runs hell. It's going to be a party. Like, we're going to go down there, and I'm like, are you being for real? Like, that's what you think? They're like, yeah, it's Little Nicky, bro.
Dude, I don't know if I've ever told you what my take on hell is. You want to hear what my take is?
All right, yeah.
Okay, so while we're on Earth, no matter how depraved it gets, and there's been horrible, horrible things that have happened on Earth and will continue to happen, but no matter how depraved it is, God's Spirit, even if it's just a little bit, God's Spirit is still there. We're not as completely depraved as we could be.
Yeah, because of the grace of God.
So what I look at hell as is, I actually look at hell as God giving you what you want. So basically, you go your life on Earth, and you don't want anything to do with God, and when you die, it's like, well, hey, if you go to heaven where God is at, you're immersed in it. And the Christians want that, and that's what we crave, is to be around God and his presence. But if you don't want anything to do with
sinless.
God, and if you don't want that, God's saying, okay, I'm going to give you what you want. You don't want to be around me? That's fine. And hell is a spiritual separation from God, and it's going to be your first encounter where you're completely removed from his spirit.
And his line.
And also, if you look at what the Bible, there's the story of Lazarus and the rich man, where the rich man treats him like crap, and then when that guy dies and he's in hell, he has the same attitude as he did on earth, where he says, "Why don't you, dip your finger in some water to cool off my tongue?" And so he's still treating Lazarus the same as he did while he's on earth, and so that leads me to believe that people in hell are not going to be like, oh, if only I had one more chance, and if only people in hell are still going to be denying God's existence. I think that they're going to completely be denying God's existence and lashing out at God that they hate him. I think that that's how people in hell will be.
Yeah, I agree with that, because then in that story too, he tells Moses.
Is it Moses or in that story?
Yeah.
I'm blanking, but yeah, keep going.
Okay, maybe it's Moses. It's someone.
Yeah.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
All right.
I was gonna say I blanked on the name as well, so I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting the mediator in it. But yeah,
the main point of the story is he tells the rich guys like, go, like appear to my my family members and warn them of this horrible place in which I am. And they're like, no. And it might have been an angel. It'd be like, you had Moses, you had the prophets.
Yes.
Maybe that's why I'm getting it confused. And he goes, and if they're not going to listen to them, they're not going to listen, period. There's nothing that can be said to them.
Yeah, same thing nowadays. It's like, oh, we need Jesus to say this or that. And it's like, Jesus would say, I already gave you my word. You have the Bible. I gave you my word. You have this. I honestly believe that if God literally, and I completely believe this, if God peeled back the sky and leaned in and said, hey, everybody, I'm God. I just want you to know that I exist, and closed the sky, that people would still be like, well, that was global warming. That was weird. Literally that's what people would do.
No, they'd be like, is he gone? Can we get back to our orgy?
Yeah. Completely. Yeah. 100%. So
dude, there's some douchebag in Omaha on 132nd and Center that says that he's Jesus Christ and Buddha all in one and has a storefront. Like Jesus Christ soul therapy. And you go in there and he's like, I am Jesus and Buddha all in one.
There's a guy that showed up to our
storefront.
There's a guy that showed up to our church and he was like, God sent me here. And then he starts like reading off the Bible, like this whole judgment of, I forget what book he started reading, but it was a book where the city was in judgment, and maybe it's Nineveh, I can't remember. But anyway, he goes into our church beforehand and he starts talking to our pastor. And at first he's kind of cool. He was like he said he's like a traveling pastor or something like that. Now, of course, he's a traveling pastor who has no ties to a church. So right there's a red flag, right? And like, oh, okay, cool. And as we're sitting there, he starts to like read off these verses in the Bible about judgment and condemnation and stuff. And our pastor's like, yeah, you got to go. And the guy's like, well, I'm doing what God said. And he's like, you're not doing what God said. You're doing what your ego is saying. And people like that piss me off so bad, because I believe that, and where it talks in the Bible about the death penalty being taking the Lord's name in vain, I don't think that that's necessarily someone saying, gee, damn it, although it could be. But I think that what that is truly of taking the Lord's name in vain is to go up to somebody and say, hey, God told me to do this or that, or, to try to manipulate somebody.
Yeah, that's what Martin Luther said it was.
And so with that guy,
taking his name in vain by using him for, worldly gain or for any purpose whatsoever.
People like
not
that
when
guy,
you hit your hand with a hammer.
Yeah.
And you're like, God damn it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like that guy pissed me off so bad. I like completely.
Did you want to do like a 360 roundhouse?
I wanted to beat his ass, dude. And I wanted to say like, if God sent you here, you're going to need God to get out, because we're going to find out really if God sent you here.
That's you wrestling with your sinful nature.
But a part of me is like, though,
your old Adam.
But look at it is, because that is like a violent tendency that I don't think is good. But a part of me is also like, isn't that kind of biblical though? Like, don't you think that people
you want to be a son of thunder?
You think if somebody
cast down fire and brimstone, Lord?
Let me ask you this for real though, and I'm not saying that I have the right answer here. What I'm saying is right, but this is how I feel about it. Don't you feel like if someone is like lying about having like I talked to God directly, or God sent me to do this or that, and
nothing pisses me off more,
and it's obviously a complete lie or it's unbiblical or whatever, don't you think that person needs to get their ass beat?
Fills me with rage, bro. I think that's why both the sons of thunder, in the scripture, where they're like, rain down fire.
Yeah.
We're both gonna sit at your left and your right, Lord? And he's like, you don't even know what you're asking for. Shut up.
Because there's like one part of you that wants to have patience with people like that and just like talk them through it. But then the other part of it is like,
Christ, that's your new nature. That's the Spirit of God. And but you're always going to wrestle with your old Adam, So it's a constant battle between, sinner and saint within you every day.
Yeah. With every decision
like
you make,
Romans
really.
7, when Paul says, I do the things that I hate, that I don't want to do.
Yeah. Yes.
You know,
I've talked
but
to
you almost took it there. You almost roundhouse kicked it.
Oh, dude, I've talked to many people who say like, well, I don't think I could be a Christian because I sin too much. And it's like, oh, trust me, you think you sin a lot now. Wait till you've been a Christian for 10 years and you really start to analyze your behavior.
Then because once you realize what the law is, like, what does a kid do? You tell a kid that they can't do something, like you're not allowed to eat cookies. And then when you fall asleep, they're eating cookies and hiding the wrappers under their bed. And, you know, it's the same way. It'll be like, thou shalt not covet, you know, and then you're like, oh, you know, but I really want that. Like it awakens something in you.
Or you start to realize how many parts of your life are like, man, one thing I've like realized is how my intentions can never be pure. No matter what I'm doing, if I'm helping somebody, there's
always in the back of your head, you're like, you're going to get this for this.
Yeah. Like I hope somebody drives by and sees me helping this old lady, you know, like there's always that, but you just have to kind of like, I've just had to come to grips with it because it's made me want to stop. Like there's been certain things where I'm like, you know what, I'm not even going to do this because it's not pure of heart for me to help this person. I'm just doing it for my ego. And then I'm like, you know what, you're still helping the person do it. And you just have to put the douchebag thoughts about how cool you're going to look in the back of your mind and just try to help people.
yeah. You gotta tell yourself like, shut up, douchebag.
Yeah. So that's why Paul says, you know, he'd been a Christian for a bit and he was like, I'm the biggest sinner out of all of them. Now, I don't literally think that Paul was the biggest sinner out of all of them. I just think that he was coming to grips with, you start to just find so much impurities in yourself and you're like, I didn't realize I was this messed up, you know?
Yeah.
Like when you first become a Christian and it's like, oh, I should probably stop like doing meth and banging hookers. And then you like stop that. And it's like, okay, that's a good starting point. But then after years of it, you just start to realize how ego-driven, egotistical you are. And all these small tweaks that you just have to keep making along the way and you struggle with. And it's 2 step forward, 1 step back a lot of the times, you know?
Yeah, dude, for real, man. And then you're, you know, thinking about those meth and hookers again.
Yeah. And you want to fall back to your old ways. But yeah, man.
Constant struggle. But life, you know, Martin Luther also said like the life of a Christian is the life of daily repentance, you know?
I still remember when you first started coming to our church and we hadn't quite met yet. And I still thought like, man, that guy looks like that comedian I saw once in Omaha. And I remember, Jeff had said, does anybody know what October 31st is? And I was like, is he talking about like the Reformation? But I didn't like raise my hand. And then you raised your hand and said it. And I thought, oh, wow, that guy actually like, he knows quite a bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
That guy that looks like that comedian I saw in Omaha once knows.
I love theology. I love the Bible.
Yeah, October 31st is a weird one, man. I think that there's room for creativity and things like that, and I think it's awkward as Christians and as a culture. You know, what is the thing? And I think about this too: is the roots of something. How do you balance out, even if the roots of something are bad, if the culture has changed the definition of it, and they're saying like we're celebrating it like this now, and this is what we take it to mean. Do you just take it at that? Is that good? Is that bad? I don't have the answer to that, but that's something I think about.
Yeah, I don't know. Say that one more time. I'm going to let it.
So if the roots of something are bad, but culture has changed it over a period of time to maybe make it better, and I'll use Halloween as an example. Let's just take all of the what Christians say of like the absolute worst of Halloween, and let's say it's all true, and let's just say, you know, it's so demonic and whatever, and now it's this moment in history where people are like, yeah, but I can dress up my kid like a superhero and we go get candy. And it's like, okay, is that bad? Or because the roots of it were bad, is it now bad still? Do you get what does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the answers.
Tell me the answers.
You know, like it just, it's hard. It's hard being a Christian. Period. I think like people don't listen to Joel Osteen like every day is a Friday, which is so stupid because you would want every day to be a Saturday. On a Friday, you still have to work. So why would you want it to be a Friday? You know, your life isn't going to get better. Like, by the way, like becoming a Christian isn't going to make your life, like you're not going to suddenly, God's going to be like, he is finally surrendered to me. First of all, you don't have a choice whether you come to God or not. That's up to him.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's going to complicate everything in your life and make everything like wrestling with Halloween for me, being a stand-up comic and then just getting off stage sometimes and just feeling super dirty because I'm like, I said so many things.
Yeah.
That I should not
I felt like that plenty of times doing music, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like you get off stage and sometimes you feel real. I always try to pray before I go on stage.
I'm like Jim Carrey and Ace Ventura, just like washing my body with steel wool.
Oh yeah, with the plunger in your face.
Too many dick jokes.
Yeah, I tried it now. What I do, and dude, I fail at this more than I am ever successful. I'll say that up front. Before we do a podcast, before I go on stage for music, things like that, is I try to pray to God to make it edifying, to make it a good thing. And then I almost immediately fail right off the gate.
Oh, dude, yeah. You'll notice, being a Christian is like you just fail all the time. And then you worry, I think maybe when you're younger, you're like worried that, people are going to be like, oh, he's not even a real Christian because of this, this, this. And you just got to come to terms with the fact that, like we're all losers and failures in this life. And like we're always going to screw things up and we're always going to have to ask people to forgive us. We're always going to have to ask God for forgiveness. And it's a daily thing.
Yeah. I'm laughing right now thinking about realistically how you're like, Lord, please help me do a set that glorifies you, and then 30 seconds later you're like, what's up with old saggy balls?
Yeah. Then I tell the story about where I poked that guy's ball sack with a pencil.
Which I think is actually a funny story, and I don't feel like you should feel convicted about that because you poked a nutsack with a mechanical pencil. But
yeah, not that. It would be more just
I get
that
it.
was true.
I've wanted to have the guys on from Apologia Church on sometime and just talk to them about like making art and like struggling with this, because I feel like they're pretty solid dudes, and I think it would be an interesting conversation about, when you're as an artist, as a creative, when your flesh gets out of control. Because a lot of it too is, I've had it where you're on stage and you'll be like, okay, I got to get the people going, like Will Ferrell on Blades of Glory, where it's like, it's provocative. We got to get the people going. And
what does that even mean?
Yeah, your ego takes over, and then you're just like, what's up, motherfucker? And it's like right off but you realize you're only you're justifying it as like, oh, I got to get the crowd involved. And you're like, no, that's your ego talking, because you don't want to, you don't want to bomb. And so you start to do things that you don't really want to do.
You know that people are going to eat up.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody loves a good dick joke.
So, yeah, October 31st Reflections. It's an interesting day. We don't have the answers to it, but we'll continue pressing on and trying to figure it out.
All right, Toolshed Art Club. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, thank you.